Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to another metal collection video. So it's been a while since I've done my last video, simply because work has been really hectic at the moment. It's that time of year where things get really busy, so yeah, it's sort of taken over for a couple of weeks, and I've spent a couple of weekends traveling, so that's why I'm a bit later than usual. But anyway, thought I would continue today. Now, if you had seen my previous video, you might have heard me say that I was going to do a collection update in this video. I lied unintentionally. I am going to get around to that, but the thing is, that collection update consists of 10 CDs, so I have quite a lot of music to talk about, and I haven't really had the time to properly listen to all of the music yet. So what I'm going to do today is an interim video, just continuing down my existing CD collection and talking about 4 albums. So, the theme, as you'll notice from the title of this video, is blood bands. What exactly do I mean by that? Simply bands which incorporate the name blood. So, blood something, that's what's in this video today, so you may be able to guess some of the bands. Spoiler, one of them is not Blood Incantation. I know that that's a band that's been spoken about a lot lately, but I don't actually have them, so you'll just have to wait and see what I do have. But is there another theme about this video? Yes, it's basically old school brutal death metal. So if you like that genre of music, I certainly do. Hopefully you'll enjoy this. And I think there's a pretty eclectic mix of some of the bands in there. So we'll get started with that soon. Before we do, what we're listening to in the background, this is Vile with Depopulate. So if you're not familiar, Vile are a brutal death metal band from the USA. And this album came out in 2002, I think. They've been around since the mid-90s. So it's really brutal American death metal in the vein of Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse. So, you know, just blasting, relentless. But if you just like that brutality and a few groovy breakdowns, you'll definitely enjoy this. So this is an album I've had for quite a few years now, but yeah, I haven't listened to it perhaps as much as I should, but whenever I put it on, I really enjoy it. So anyway, it fits the theme of the music today. So check these guys out. This is Vile with Depopulate. All right, so getting to the 4 CDs today. The first band is from Sweden and probably need no introduction, so I'm just going to go straight into it. This is Bloodbath with Breeding Death. So, of course, Bloodbath are now a very well-established and famous band in the death metal scene. They have been somewhat of a supergroup over the years, and this particular release is no exception. They started as a supergroup. There's been a few lineup changes over the years, but they've always been somewhat of a supergroup. Like in the most recent incarnation, you've got Nick Holmes from Paradise Lost as the lead vocalist, like that's an example. But yeah, they've had Peter from Hypocrisy, all sorts of musicians. Anyway, getting to this release, this is the debut EP, which I believe came out in 1999 or 2000. I actually bought it in the year 2000, and over 20 years later, I still love it. So I'll get into this in a moment. Just check the artwork out. And portrait of the band. I'll talk about the lineup in a minute. And yeah, you can just see it's an EP. So just reading the hype sticker here. It says, featuring members of Opeth, Catatonia, and Edge of Sanity. Unmerciful old school brutal death metal performed the way it should be. You'll also see this little slogan down the side. It says, brutality comes through simplicity. And I believe they put a note on the inside. Where was it? Bloodbath wished to state that Breeding Death is a tribute to the old school death metal scene that ruled in the late 80s and beyond. Brutality comes through simplicity. So that pretty much tells you all you need to know about this release. This particular lineup, by the way, really cool photo. This is the supergroup, so it features Michael Arkerfeld from Opeth, Anders Nystrom and Jonas Renska from Catatonia, I think, and Dan Swano from Edge of Sanity, who is also known for his involvement in so many projects and as a producer. So yeah, this certainly was a star-studded supergroup lineup for this first release. Just show you the disc. Really cool. So apart from what the hype stickers and the slogans have told you, what's my take on this? Basically, it's old school, bouncy, brutal death metal. Very bouncy, very catchy. All the elements of old school death metal that you love. If you like death metal, you're going to enjoy this album. So with the members, they're all from Sweden. It's a Swedish band, obviously. The sound of this band, I wouldn't say they have an overtly Swedish sound. Like, they take influence, I think, from certain Swedish bands such as Dismember and Grave, particularly Grave, especially with the bounciness. But there's also elements of that North American death metal sound. So really, it's not going for one particular nationality, it's just going for that old school brutal death metal style. So you've got 3 tracks on here: Breeding Death, Ominous Blood Vomit, and Furnace Funeral. All are brilliant in my opinion. Like, just every song is a standout track, so you can't go wrong with this. What I like about this band is they're not one of those bands that write in rock arrangements. It's not verse, chorus, verse. All of the songs have a lot of twists and turns. They're loaded with different riffs and just so brutal, yet at the same time so catchy. So yeah, like the first song, Breeding Death, that has loads of different riffs and twists and turns, and it's such a great groovy song, as well as some really haunting riffing in that song. Like, I'm not going to sing it because that's embarrassing, but like just this haunting riff in the middle of the song is brilliant. Ominous Blood Vomit's just got some really groovy, catchy breakdowns in it, and Furnace Funeral is another just brutal, straightforward, all marching ahead death metal song, but then it's got this sort of atmospheric doomy part at the end which features some keyboards. I think that's Dan Swano's influence, because he's a big keyboard playing kind of guy, like in a lot of his bands like Pandemonium and Edge of Sanity. So that last song, the band really shows their Scandinavian roots, I think, because it's got that sort of haunting, semi-black metal-esque influence, but really, really good. Like, if you like bands such as Dismember, Grave, all of those famous 90s death metal bands, you're just going to love this. As I said, I've owned this for over 20 years, and I still find myself listening to it on a regular basis. Also, I'll just mention about the production. It's really clean and clear, but not in a bad way. You can hear all elements and all aspects of the music clearly, including the bass, the drums, everything's perfect. The vocals are just razor sharp and ferocious, like really good. And like a low guttural voice from Michael, but it's not like stupidly low and guttural and moist like some slam death metal bands. It's more like, imagine a cross between Matty Kaki from Dismember, but not as shouty as that, crossed with Jan Chris from Gorefest. So like just deep, bear-like, brutal vocals, but razor sharp as well. So nothing further to say about this. One other thing though is that this band has released a whole spate of albums over the years, and to be honest, this is the only one I own. I did buy another one ages ago, but long story behind that, I don't have it anymore. But yeah, this is one band where I always think I should get around to listening to more of their stuff, but I haven't yet. So can you please tell me, viewers, if you like this band, what are some of your favorites by them? I think Nightmares Made Flesh is supposed to be a good one, and I've heard that the new ones with Nick Holmes are very good, but anyway, you tell me, what's your favorite Bloodbath album? However, if you have not checked this out, definitely do so, because it's brilliant. So that's Bloodbath with Breeding Death. Okay, so moving on to the next blood band, just after a sip. Drinking moose cider today, it's not bad at all. Okay, coming up to the next one. I have spoken about this in another video, but that was part of a collection update, so I'll just go over this quickly. This is Blood Feast with Chopped, Sliced and Diced. So yeah, if you've watched my channel for a while, you'll notice I talked about this in a collection update video. Blood Feast are a death thrash band from the USA, like I suppose more death metal, but as I mentioned in the video where I discussed this, it's sort of like, this is a 2018 release, but when the band first came out in the 80s, it was during that era where death metal evolved from thrash metal. So thrash metal was becoming more and more extreme, especially vocally, like with the guttural vocals or the raspy vocals. So it's when thrash metal was evolving and crossing over into death metal. So that's basically the sound that this band has retained over the years. And it's brilliant. It's got that very 80s vibe, which I just love. Just show you the cover art here. Cool cover art. Nice readable lyrics on the inside. And a kind of Hammer Horror booklet there. This one was released by Hell's Headbangers a couple of years back. And to show you once again, that disc is just superb. Really like the artwork on that. Yep, so if you like old school death metal, which is heavily thrash influenced, you'll like this. The production is kind of raw, and the vocals are raspy in that kind of thrashy-esque vein. But yeah, just amazing. I really, really like it. Like every song is just no holds barred, intense, bombarding, like always fast, catchy, energetic riffs, and like the drums and everything which accompany it. It's just like super, super catchy and energetic, so you can't help but like tap along, drum along to this. It's also really good running music. Like I often take it when I go out running, and it just gives me the energy to run really fast. It's brilliant. Like every song has just got like catchy hooks, and all 6 tracks, again this is an EP, are really, really good. I mentioned in the collection update, I said my favorite track is all of them. No, that still rings true, but I'd say the 3 catchiest for me would be the opening track, Concubine, also the second track, Hunted, Stalked and Slain. Those 2 particular tracks, what makes them stand out over the others is just the really catchy vocal patterns and chorus, like, again, sing-along material. Also, Chopping Block Blues is great. And interestingly, one of my favorites is also the live track, By the Slice. Like, that is just so hooky and catchy. But like, just imagine like old school death metal with a thrashy bounce and energy and speed, relentless, catchy, blasting. You're just gonna love this. And these riffs are just razor sharp the whole way through. So like, it's an album to listen to if you want to get your energy levels up. And yeah, the vocals are just great, as I said, just with that raspy kind of screechy sound. It fits the frantic nature of the music really well. So if you haven't checked this band out, I would say this is definitely a good release to start with. This is Blood Feast with Chopped, Sliced and Diced. Okay. So up next, 2 more CDs. That's refreshing. All right, so the next 2 CDs are by the same band. So can you guess what the band is? I'll just tell you. Up next we have Blood Red Throne. This is Blood Red Throne with Monument of Death. So if you're not familiar, Blood Red Throne are a death metal band from Norway. So that's interesting, isn't it? A lot of people associate Norway with black metal, which is predominantly true, but obviously there was that famous scene there established by, you know, Mayhem and Euronymous and the Black Circle and so on, blah, blah, blah. But as a result of that, a lot of other subgenres of metal in Norway get overlooked. So this is one such band, a brutal old school death metal band from Norway. Having said that, it does feature members from black metal bands. So, am I a hypocrite for saying that? I don't think so, just giving you the background. But I'm not sure. This is somewhat of a supergroup too. I'm not familiar with all the members off the top of my head. Like, I've got their names here, but I think some of them go under different pseudonyms. But it features Chort, formerly of Emperor and now of Carpathian Forest. So it's black metal guys paying tribute to old school death metal. So what particular old school death metal? I would say this band is heavily influenced and emulating the sound of 90s North American death metal. So there are very particular bands I associate with this band. When you listen to them, you definitely hear their sound. So some people might say, so it's a tribute? Yeah, kind of, I suppose, but if you just like that stuff like I do, you're gonna really enjoy this. So there's just the inner sleeve. Oh, by the way, I will mention, I haven't mentioned this yet, I think no artworks have been over the top yet, but from this stage in, they might be a bit explicit for some people, so just a word of warning, if you're squeamish about the sight of blood or you don't like gory artworks, probably best to look away. Now, I'm not going to show all pages of this booklet because they're quite explicit, just like the Evolved album, Gore Spattered Suicide, you know, pictures of band members blowing their brains out, and this has got similar images and also people who have been beaten with sledgehammers. Like, it's all theatrical, but I don't want this video to get taken down for stupid reasons, so it's got photos of the band members sort of dying in gory ways. But here's the booklet. Cool logo, it's kind of a bit black metal-esque, so maybe that was intentional. And you've got, you know, lyrics and credits, that kind of thing. So when I say it sounds like North American death metal, the bands that I hear most in this band's music are definitely Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, Gorguts, Morbid Angel, and maybe snippets of others here and there, like Immolation, Incantation, Deranged, but particularly those first 4 I mentioned. So especially Deicide and Cannibal Corpse. So more on that in a moment. You've got 9 tracks here. The production is really clean. Like, again, not in a wimpy way, just so you can hear everything clearly. You can hear the bass so well, the guitars, the drums, the vocals. The mix is really, really good. The vocals are really that deep sort of bellowing growl, in the vein, I would say, of Glenn Benton on those sort of classic 90s Deicide albums like Legion, Once Upon the Cross, Serpents of the Light. To an extent, the first album as well, you know, it's like really low, guttural, bellowing vocals. That's what it's like, and they're razor sharp as well. Now the riffing, when I hear the music, there's riffs of elements of all those bands, Deicide, Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel, etc., etc. But the band that I most associate with this album is Deicide for sure, just in terms of the riffs and the rhythms and the drumming style, like, which, you know, Steve Asheim's unique drumming style, I really hear that predominantly on this album. So if you like all of those 90s Deicide death metal albums, definitely check this out, because you won't be disappointed. It's just like that. You could, as I said though, you do hear aspects of Cannibal Corpse in this for sure, particularly with the vocals, and also Morbid Angel in the sense of those like slow, sort of straightforward, chugging, groovy riffs. But this album is a really mixed bag, like a melting pot of all of those bands. You've got some like relentless blasting songs or parts, and then they really slow shift into these groovy, heavy breakdowns and chugging riffs, coupled with the brutal vocals. Like, you just can't not like this if you like death metal, in my opinion. So definitely check it out. 9 of the 9 tracks, pretty much all of them are my favorites. Like, this is another album, I bought it in, I think, 2001 when it came out. It stayed with me over the years, and I really enjoy listening to it to this day. So, just if you want to get an insight into the album, the 2 tracks to start with would be track 2, Souls of Damnation, or track 8, Monument of Death, the title track. Both of those start with this sort of like surging, running, relentless riff accompanied by running drumming, and like Souls of Damnation, like a raspy scream, and Monument of Death, like low guttural growl. But hear the start of those songs, the first 5 seconds. If you're not thoroughly hooked after that, that would be surprising to me. So like, those songs are just great to start with, but like, they've got some chugging, catchy riffs. You know, it's just really, really brilliant. Like, every song, and they also change it up, so there's variety as well. So some of my favorite tracks would be track 1, Portrait of a Killer. Also, Dream Controlled Murder. That's got some really haunting, eerie, creepy riffs in it, and some atmosphere, just great, where they sort of slow down and go into this dark area. Merry Whispers of Death just has some really groove-driven, sludgy, heavy breakdowns, which are just great. Ravenous War Machine has just got some really, how would I describe it, quirky, twisted kind of riffs in it, like just like really amazing musicianship. And Path of Flesh has got the last song that's got some really catchy, bouncy rhythms, and also just dark and disturbing atmosphere again. So yeah, of those 9 tracks I've mentioned just nearly all of them, but yeah, if you like that style, yeah, definitely check this band out. They have also released a lot of albums, and I don't own all of them, but this was their debut, and it's a brilliant one to start with. So the production, the songwriting, the style, everything, there's nothing to complain about this album. I would say it's a 10 out of 10. So that's Blood Red Throne with Monument of Death. Okay. So next. Up next, the last CD, I'm going to talk about another Blood Red Throne album. Again, disclaimer, if you're offended by gory artworks, especially if you're squeamish at the sight of blood, you better look away. This is Blood Red Throne with Affiliated with the Suffering, and I believe this is their sophomore album, so it came out a couple of years after Monument of Death. Now this one, I think I can show you some of the booklet. Oh yeah, so you've got lyrics and pictures going for that sort of morgue theme there. Yeah. And all of the lyrics, which are nice and readable. Well, I wouldn't say they're nice, but they're reasonable. Readable, not reasonable either. And just show you the disc. Okay, now this one's quite explicit. Okay. So, how can I describe this album in a nutshell? If you would like me to be completely honest, I would say more of the same thing. So in exactly the same vein as Monument of Death. Are there any differences? Not really. I would say on this particular album, though, the production is a bit dirtier. So on the first one, it was very clean and clear. This one, yes, just sort of a bit rawer. Only slightly though, but you can still hear everything clearly. So maybe that was a conscious move just to go for a more brutal kind of sound. I don't know. Anything else? Know that the songwriting formula is pretty much the same, like just blasting and relentless, very heavy, but they've also got those groovy, catchy breakdowns and slower parts to change it up a bit. Another difference, I said the first album was mostly influenced by Deicide, in my opinion. This one takes more of an influence from Cannibal Corpse, especially like old school Cannibal Corpse, like the Chris Barnes era albums to a degree, but also the George Fisher albums. Like it's a mix, but you just definitely see that Cannibal Corpse influence creeping into the songs more. And is that a bad thing? Certainly not for me, because Cannibal Corpse are one of my favorite bands in the genre. So Deicide crossed over with Cannibal Corpse, plus sprinklings of other bands like Morbid Angel, Gore Guts, and so on. So you know what to expect there. This is one album, it's sort of like, you know, a movie, you see the debut movie and then the sequel you never enjoy as much as the original. But I'm not saying I don't enjoy this as much, just the first one was the first one I ever heard, so I got really excited and into that when I was a lot younger. And this one I just haven't given enough time over the years, but upon listening to this a few times again recently, really shame on me because it's just as good as the first one. It's really good and there's some really growing tracks, so I would say definitely recommend both of these albums. Yeah, so same songwriting formula as I said. My favorite tracks on this would be Bleeder's Lament, that's track 3. On that song, they've just got this crazy off-the-wall melodic harmony part, which is really hypnotic, like just some guitar work where it's striking, it just jumps out at you and it's so incredibly catchy, it'll be stuck in your head all day. So Bleeder's Lament is great for that. Also track 4, Mandatory Homicide / Death Inc., so obviously taking influence from Slayer song titles there, but that song has got a Cannibal Corpse Hammer Smashed Face feel, you know, like the opening riff of Hammer Smashed Face and the rhythm, like dun, 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 dun. Like not exactly the same, but it's subtly in that vein, just like a Volst song, Nullo, the pleasure of self-mutilation. So that track is very Cannibal Corpse-y, and it also includes some elements of Deranged, you know, like Deranged, the Swedish band, released that awesome album, Plainfield Cemetery, where it's just relentless with the blast beats, like snare heavy blast beats. You definitely hear that on that track, Mandatory Homicide / Death Inc. So think of a cross between old school Cannibal Corpse and Deranged for that song, which is great. Also track 5, Razor Jack, just very heavy, groovy and catchy with a lot of great riffs. And put simply, lyrically that song must have been inspired by Cannibal Corpse's Shredded Humans. So Shredded Humans, I'm not going to explain the story, but yeah, I think it's modeled on that. Yeah, so if you know the lyrics like I do, yeah, when I read Razor Jack, I went, oh, that's just like Shredded Humans. But is that a bad thing? No, they're just paying tribute to their influences, which you really hear on this album. So then Chaos Rising, Gather the Dead, like I heard some great grooves on that. The title track is also great, the closing track, Malediction, they're all really, really good. So I definitely recommend this album too. What else makes this album special is they finish with 4 bonus tracks. One's called Mercy Killings, done by the band, which is another good song. And then 3 covers. You've got Deadly Intentions, originally by Obituary, Cryptic Realms, originally by Massacre, and Hate Tank, originally by MOD. Each and every one of those songs slays, kicks ass. It's so heavy, so catchy. You probably know all of those songs already as a death metal fan, but just hearing this band do their take on them, it's really exciting, especially Deadly Intentions by Obituary, because it's not that typical Obituary vocal style, more just the conventional guttural vocals that this band goes for. But anyway, really, really good album of old school styled death metal. So that's Blood Red Throne with Affiliated with the Suffering. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this video. They're the only bands with blood in the titles that I have, but yeah, as I said, with some of these bands I would be interested to get more releases, particularly, yeah, all of them actually, yeah, so Bloodbath, Blood Feast and Blood Red Throne. So if you have any albums by those bands which you really recommend, let me know. So in the next video, as I said, I'm going to do another collection update. That will be 10 CDs. So I'm looking forward to doing that because there's a really eclectic mix of bands. You've got death metal, black metal, heavy metal, so hopefully something for everyone. So if you've stuck it out, thanks a lot for watching this video, And thanks for your support of the channel as usual. I hope you keep watching, and I hope you can join me for the next video. So take care, and I'll talk to you soon. Cheers.